Wow, it's a beautiful, beautiful Sunday evening, and this is the day that the Lord has made. We will indeed rejoice and be glad in it. I am so, so glad to see every last one of you and to know that you're there watching us and receiving us loud and clear. This is Occupy Today, only on Hope TV. Occupy Today, only on Hope TV. And we are excited this evening just to be back, and very excited to have the content again on the circular economy. My goodness, I'm learning there is so much to learn. There's so much to know in this space. And I don't know whether you're like me, that is learning these things every other day, and it's getting very exciting. And so we will be covering something on the circular economy for the last couple of weeks. And of course, going on to the next couple of weeks, we will still be covering this ecosystem, and I'm sure that you will be able to learn, you will be able to see where opportunities are, but also you'll be able to be sharpened and get better as a consumer, as a producer, and as somebody who is utilizing the ecosystem in one way or the other. So I'm excited this evening. My name is Kajuju Gisharo. I am a growth coach in the areas of entrepreneurship and innovation, as well as personal development, and I'm excited this evening just to host this show, Occupy Today, only on Hope TV. And I'm looking forward to a very engaging conversation with the one and only James Odongo. I'm excited this evening to have you in studio,
Thank you,
James.
Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really, truly exciting
to
meet you for the very first time and to see the amazing things that you're doing for our space, the climate space in Kenya.
Thank you.
The improvements that you're making, and of course the milestones that you have made over the last couple of years, and you'll be telling us all this.
Thank you.
I just want to welcome you, to tell you that you are in Hope TV.
Thank you.
Yes, only on Occupy Today. This show that highlights the achievements of entrepreneurs like yourself that are making great progress in our country. So Karibu Sana, I would want to invite you to introduce yourself.
Thank you.
Tell us who really is James Odongo, what you're doing with yourself.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sarah. I think first is to commend you for providing a platform for us to be able to voice out the progresses and successes we are making as the different entrepreneurs and thought leaders within the different spaces. And something close to my heart on circular economy, really you focusing on that thematic area is quite commendable. So back to your question, who James is. James Odongo is the CEO of the Kenya Extended Producer Responsibility Organization. I don't know whether it's appropriate, but at a personal level I'm also a Christian, and really also being glad to be on this platform. Yes.
It's very, very appropriate that you are a Christian and you're telling us that you're a Christian.
Yes.
This is a Christian show, and so we are excited to have you.
Thank you.
James, you look relatively young. I thought you'd have begun and said, I am a Gen Z.
No. I'm probably a millennial.
Oh, probably a millennial.
Yes.
Lovely. Now that name, Kepro.
Yes.
In short.
Yes.
But you said it in full. Would you want to say it again and tell us what you're doing? What is Kepro? What are they doing?
Yes. So we use the term Kepro because our full name is quite mouthful. But for the benefit of everyone, Kepro is a Kenya Extended Producer Responsibility Organization.
Kenya Extended Producer Responsibility Organization.
And of course, I'll get into the specifics of it. But just to also help you, and a bit of a backstory as to who Kepro is. So back in 2017, if you remember, there was a ban of the single-use plastic carrier bags.
Yes.
And increasingly, the government was having an appetite for banning of other fractions or packaging materials that were deemed to be stubborn to the environment.
Indeed.
So the next would be victims of the bread bags and the PET bottles.
And the PET bottles are which ones?
So the plastic bottles that we use for our drinking water and the sodas and the likes.
Yes.
So the private sector and of course all concerned parties realize that banning is not necessarily the ultimate solution, recognizing that you can't ban products into perpetuity because they're actually meeting a certain pent-up demand in the society.
Indeed.
And so the solution was managing. So private sector led by the Kenya Association of Manufacturers and other stakeholders, including of course government representation, coalesced around an agreement that private sector would now be taking charge of the environmental consequences of their products. And that is how the conversation towards entrenchment of extended producer responsibility in Kenya started. So, of course, the discussions, it was a back and forth discussion, a lot of consultation, travels to Europe to be able to explore what was working. And then we borrowed and adapted the proposal within the Kenyan context. So in 2019, government and private sector coalesced around a common agreement in a document we are calling the Kenya Plastic Action Plan.
Kenya Plastic Action Plan.
So this was ratified in 2019. It's effectively paving way for a conversation on private sector taking lead in terms of the environmental consequences of the products they put into the market. So that is where also the business model for the first producer responsibility organization, so in this case KEPRO, was developed. We started operations in 2021. That was March 2021, with the intention of being able to pilot and for the government to see that this was potentially an approach, a policy approach that would work in the Kenyan context. So I'll speak to EPR later on, but EPR was largely a global north. So you're talking about Europe and other countries that are more established as a policy approach. But now we are trying to localize it and trying to see if it could possibly work. So that was the intention of the Kenya Plastic Action Plan, and KEPRO now came into existence in 2021. So the bread and butter for KEPRO is implementation of what we are calling the Extended Producer Responsibility Organization. And by and large, we are managing compliance solutions for businesses that believe that profit and planet can coexist.
Profit and planet can coexist.
Because we've always argued that the private sector and producers are largely only after profit. But now these are visionary producers who believe that, yes, even as we are generating profit, we owe it to the upcoming generations to actually do something about our environment and the consequences of the actions we are making right now. Yes.
Wow, that's quite some heavy stuff you're doing. I wonder what was happening prior to 2017.
So prior to 2017 and of course to date, we are still largely a linear economy, and I'll try and break it down. So a linear economy is where we are drawing finite resources from the earth. So if you want to make your plastic bottle, you tap onto the resources on from the environment, generate your plastic bottle, sell it to Sarah in the form of drinking water or soda. Sarah utilizes it and throws it into the environment. But now what we are intending to do is to try and encourage a culture of recycling. So of course before 2017, the recycling culture in Kenya was still very low. We have made some good strides, not yet there. We are still at less than 15% recycling rates. And so the intention is for the recycling economy is that once Sarah has utilized a bottle, drank her water or soda, she's not disposing it, but she's turning it into the value chain by sharing these products or outcomes of the consumption to the recycler. So the recycler introduces this into the value chain through the whole recycling process. But the ultimate goal, and which is the true north for KEPRO, is realization of a circular economy in Kenya. So that because in a recycling economy, there's still some waste that will be going into the environment. But our intention now is that recycling will be done in perpetuity. So there will be very minimal to zero waste going into the environment, because we have fully fledged and properly established recycling facilities in the country.
Hey, it sounds quite some great stuff you're doing. And of course, I'm just curious to know, James, were you always in this space? Were you a recycler before, or where did you spring from to actually take a very great position in KEPRO?
So it's a case of coincidence or life really taking its course. Professionally, I'm an urban planner.
But that fits very well.
Solid waste management, it fits well, but it's only but a very tiny subject in school. Then started my career, of course, different organizations, Institute for Development Studies, Regional Center for Mapping of Resources and Development. But ultimately now where I carved my path towards what I do from a policy advocacy and research point of view was the Architectural Association of Kenya. So that is where I started as an advocacy officer, rose through the rank, left as a policy research and advocacy manager, then was approached, or rather transitioned to the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. That was my first stint as a CEO. Made some bit of progress, then now transitioned to the Kenya Extended Producer Responsibility Organization.
Great.
Yes, yes.
So you lead a whole organization that is doing, and you call it, is it policing? Are you policing, or what exactly are you doing?
Yes, yes. So by and large, KEPRO is a mix of both policy and us trying to shy away from, or move away from mere lip service to doing practical solutions in terms of not blaming others, but taking practical steps and tangible solutions to be able to make a change in the world. Yes, yes.
Wow. So what is the mandate, or what is the work of KEPRO? Maybe that is where now we really need to hear. What exactly are you doing as an organization?
Yes,
How do you do it? With whom do you do it? And so on.
Okay. Okay. So I'll try and break down the concept of EPR, so Extended Producer Responsibility.
Yes.
Just from the name itself, this is a policy approach mandating the producer. So I'll use an example, not to quote any brand, but for instance, the host of this platform, CITAM. Let us assume CITAM produces a bottle of water.
Yes.
And
we actually do.
Yes, yes. So CITAM would be a producer. And in this case, the law and the policy approach requires that now CITAM needs to take care of the product throughout the life cycle. So at point of generation, at point of consumption, and ultimately at point of disposal. So that if it is at point of disposal when the product is not recyclable, there is proper or safe disposal of the waste. So in a nutshell, that is what EPR is doing.
Yes.
So when we were starting in 2021, we started as a voluntary compliance scheme.
Yes.
Where it was really a case of for those who would want to do good for the society. But fast forward, and based on our learnings, the government decided to entrench into the law and the Sustainable Waste Management Act 2022, which of course was assented to by the former president. That was in July 2022. Required now Section 13 of the Act makes it mandatory for all producers to be compliant,
yes,
to institute extended producer responsibility mechanisms for themselves. And the law provides for two compliance approaches. So one as an individual entity. So if CITAM, back to them as a producer, has the capacity to be able to institute measures for proper traceability and collection of the waste resulting from their products, they can be able to put in place individual compliance scheme.
Yes.
But because in most cases that does not necessarily fit in most business models.
Because it's not their core business, right?
It's not their core business. The intention and the purpose for, or rather what has always worked for most businesses in terms of best case practices is a compliance scheme that brings together all these producers, because it also reduces the overhead costs.
Indeed.
As far as compliance scheme is concerned. So that compliance scheme in this case is called a Producer Responsibility Organization, or a PRO in short.
Yes.
And this is where KEPRO comes in.
I see.
So for ourselves, and speaking to the mandate from a legal point of view, we manage compliance solutions for our members, who to date we are looking at around 850 members.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
That's a big number.
Yes, yes.
And these are all producers or manufacturers of something that releases into the environment waste. Is it necessarily plastic waste, or are you also in other waste?
Yeah, so the law is quite clear in terms of the different schedules and focus areas for different producer responsibility organizations. But for the purposes of today's conversation, KEPRO focuses on packaging for non-hazardous. So your typical household goods,
I see,
in the form of either glass packaging, plastic packaging, paper and carton, aluminum and metal. So you look at the soda containers and the likes, as well as the difficult to recycle. So the laminates. So there are certain fractions that are difficult to recycle.
I see.
I won't go into. I would have given an example of a brand, but I think I won't be able to mention. But majority of our packaging is actually non-recyclable.
I see.
Yes, yes.
Wow. So then what do your conversations look like when it goes to the producers? What are you discussing with them every other day?
Okay, so for producers, of course, as I said from the onset, is that EPR is still a new concept in the global south. And so for our producers presently, it's trying to break down for them to be able to understand what is EPR, what is my obligation as a producer from a legal point of view, and really how do I actually ensure that I'm compliant.
I see.
And then, of course, now being able to also report to them what we are doing with their monies. Because remember, they pay us monthly based on the volumes they're putting out into the market. So if CITAM sells 10,000 bottles and we're charging 1 shilling to be able to manage a bottle, you need to pay us 10,000 shillings that month.
I see.
So we have to declare that out of the 10,000 shillings you paid us, 2,000 shillings went to overhead cost in terms of operationalization of the secretariat or the staff. Maybe some amount went to awareness creation, another amount went to capacity building, and then another amount went to subsidy contracts for our waste management operators.
I see.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
My dear viewers, I'm really hoping that you're present and you're learning these things. I don't know whether you're a producer. Have you known KEPRO exists? I don't know whether you know that KEPRO exists, just to be that bridge between you and your responsibility as a producer. And this is the person to talk to. These are the people to talk to. But also, I don't know, and maybe James, you'll be telling us about consumers on the other hand. Do you have any responsibility to them?
Yes.
But even as you answer that,
Yes.
I'm so glad that our dear viewers, you're there and you're listening to this, because it's interesting that some of these things come into policy, they come as a laws in Kenya, but not many of us are aware about them, and yet we have a responsibility to our environment. There is a statement you made where you were talking about the planet and the profit.
Yes.
What was it?
Yeah. So where we are saying producers need to understand that there is planet and profit can coexist.
They can coexist.
Yes, yes.
Indeed. Do you know that profit and planet can coexist? And if so, what is your responsibility? And of course, as we have this discussion, it's an eye-opener for you and for me and for the rest of us who are producers or who are consumers, to be able to look at how we can live responsibly for the sake of our planet. So then, that question on do you talk to consumers as well?
Yes.
And secondly, also, maybe you can tell us at this point, is this ERP, is it something that is in other jurisdictions, or is it just in Kenya?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, so to your first question, yes, we do speak to consumers. In our business model, we actually have them as a primary stakeholders. Because the reality is, as long as Sarah is improperly disposing of her waste, probably throwing off her bottle from the window of her moving car, then there's only so much we can do, however much money we'll be able to pump into the ecosystem.
Indeed.
So we are really deliberate on trying to cascade down this information to the consumers for them to be able to understand their role. So just to give you a classical example, is that earlier this year, and in recognition of the role of the consumer, we launched what we are calling the Consumer-Led Transformation Initiative.
The consumer?
Consumer-Led Transformation Initiative. So CLT.
Consumer-Led Transformation Initiative.
Yes, yes. So in short, we call it CLT.
CLT.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And this is intended to provide a platform to be able to give the consumer that agency feeling that they actually have a role to play as far as environmental stewardship is concerned.
Indeed.
So it is not a case of you blaming the government or you blaming private sector, but it actually starts from your household level as Sarah, that actually have a responsibility as far as waste management is concerned. So yes, consumers really play a huge role. We are trying to cascade down this information as much as possible, instigate social dialogues on really what can we be able to do and be environmental champions at our own individual levels.
So how is CLT happening?
So it's a cocktail or a multiplicity use of different approaches and platforms. So of course this is one such platform, trying to use and leverage on the media as a mouthpiece.
Yes.
You guys have the power to be able to reach more audiences compared to ourselves.
Indeed.
The other way is through social dialogues and town hall sessions. So very targeted sessions predominantly targeting residents associations and general representatives from members of the public who we want and sort of try and engage them on some sort of a TOT approach, trainer of trainers. So share this information with Sarah on the assumption that when she goes back home, she'll be able
has
to
an
share
audience.
Yes, share it with her neighbors and
Yes.
relatives and the likes. So those are the two predominant platforms we try and use. Of course, other media platforms or social media platforms, and by and large leverage on the word of mouth approach also.
I see.
Yes.
Great,
Yeah.
great. Wow, amazing.
Yes.
And the question on other areas, other jurisdictions, other countries that are doing this.
Oh, yes.
Is it just here, or is it, something that is being done elsewhere?
No. So other countries, more specifically the global north, I think like the EU,
Yes.
the deposit return system is quite well established.
Deposit return system. What is that?
So this is where
Hey, I tell you, James.
I need to try and reduce my technical terms. But the idea is you are paid to return your bottle at the point of purchase.
I see.
So they have digitalized platforms where you go, place your bottle, and then you get your cash back. Well established. So to the extent that however much the monies are paid at the point of deposit is really small, but for them consumer behavior has really been entrenched from way back.
Maybe a childhood.
20, 30 years of practice. So it's really quite successful. They are realizing up to 98% collection and recycling rates.
I see.
Yes.
Wow. And so, are there cultures, are there things that we can begin doing now that would bear fruit in the future?
Yes, sure. And I think that is where we are starting from. So sort of tied to the question which I was answering, is that in Africa and generally in the global south, we are starting to see that bit because consumers are becoming and now really woke. Or rather, we are seeing a woke generation in terms of consumption. So issues around responsible consumption are becoming quite familiar. So in Africa, we have the South Africa who implemented EPR and have made it mandatory. Of course, there is that in Ghana. But now the unique thing about Kenya is that we introduced it for all products. So while it may be a good thing, reality on the ground might be that we might have taken up more than we can be able to chew.
I see.
Because experts have always suggested that it should be on a phased approach. So you'll see in Ghana, it's only focusing on e-waste, the electronic waste. In South Africa, it's only focusing on plastic waste. But then in Kenya, and as I've said, it's a two-way. One minute it can be a good thing, the other bit it can be a bad thing. Because it requires a lot of effort to institute these procedures. But in terms of what we can be able to try and borrow, I think we have a very good policy and legislative framework guiding waste management in the country. And one thing that we have agreed and research has shown is that if consumers were actually able to do what is required of them by law, so you're looking at proper disposal of waste, and of course now segregation of waste and source, we'd be able to address really a huge chunk of what waste we see in the environment. So as shocking as it may sound, the typical waste you see in the environment, organic waste, which generally decomposes maximum a month, you'll hardly see anything there, comprises 70%.
What?
So what is a nuisance is less than 70%. That which you see in the environment, the papers, the plastic that you see that are an ISO.
It's like 30%.
Only 30%.
Really?
Now to shock you further, our recyclers, because we work closely with the waste management operators, recyclers, are operating at very minimal levels because the volumes are getting are minimal. They're not operating at full capacity because when you mix your waste, when you put your bananas or fruit
together with the plastics and everything,
it becomes quite problematic to clean it and introduce it into the machinery to recycle. So really, the buck stops with the producer, the consumer. If you were to
Segregate.
Yeah, bare minimum 2 bins in the household.
Yeah.
Have one for food waste, have one for the dry waste.
Yes.
Will really solve quite a huge chunk of our problem.
Indeed.
So that is one practice I feel if our
Wow.
consumers in Kenya were to embrace,
Yes.
would really make some good progress. Because
So
it's
what
also
are you doing
provided
about
for,
it?
in law.
Yeah.
What we are doing about it, I think, is first putting in place the practical measures and doing the heavy lifting.
Yes.
However much our capacities might still be
Yes.
limited.
Yes.
But just also help the viewers appreciate the progress so far. We have, since operations started in 2021,
Yes.
collected and converted over 16,000 metric tons of post-consumer flexible plastic. And underline the word post-consumer. So this is not the industrial waste. Where you
It's
go to
it's from
your
households
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
maybe institutions,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And to help you understand,
Yes.
one of our main areas of focus are the bread bags.
Bread bags.
Yes, yes. So when you consume your bread, there's a plastic
Yes.
wrapping that remains.
Yes.
That is what we initially started with. For you to be able to realize 1 kg, you need to collect 200 pieces of those. So assuming you only buy one bread,
Yes.
that is barely a kg. So you need to get to 200 households
Yes.
to be able to get 1
To
kg.
get 1 kg.
So convert that to 16,000 metric tons,
Yes.
and that should help you understand that the type of work that has gone into it.
Can imagine.
Yes, yes. So that is
Yes.
one such approach we're using.
Yeah.
And of course, one that we've also tried to really work on is improving the capacities of our waste management operators. So in Kenya, our waste ecosystem is largely driven by the informal sectors.
Indeed.
So the people who come to your houses and gates with the gunias or the sacks
Yes.
to collect waste are the ones who really define the business model for waste in Kenya.
Yes.
So us trying to have the conversation with them to see how can we be able to formalize so that they're actually collecting everything that is valuable and being able to feed it in the recycling ecosystem. And then for our recyclers, the capacities are also still very limited. So we're also trying to help them enhance their capacities. And that directly, we have spent over 120 million Kenya shillings through subsidies. So
Yes.
we understand that Sarah is a recycler. She has a business model figured out. But we have noticed that you are underperforming or not operating to full capacity.
Optimally, yeah.
So we inject some money to your business to try and see if you can be able to acquire more machinery, acquire more volumes in terms of feedstock and the like.
Yes.
And that is, those are some of the interventions we are trying to deploy as we go. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
Amazing. Great stuff you're doing.
Yes.
But you know where you left me actually is at the consumer bit in terms of segregation of their waste.
Yes.
And I don't know where is this information, because let me ask you, my dear audience, how many of you are aware that once you have consumed the sodas, the juices, the yogurt, together with the bananas and the maize and everything else, that you're supposed to separate the two or three? There are actually 3 separations. There is dry waste,
Yes.
there is wet waste, and there is
Hazardous waste.
and hazardous waste.
Yes, yes.
How many of you are actually aware that this ought to be done? How many of you actually do it, not just being aware, you know? And here is where the challenge is. And I think more needs to be done than James, because looks like it's actually an attitude issue.
Yes,
If
yes.
it's not a knowledge issue, it could be an attitude issue.
Yes.
So what needs to be done? I think there's much more that needs to be done right here.
True. So it's a mix of both. So there's the bit about deliberate ignorance, and then there's a bit about the lack of actual awareness on this front. And I think we need to be, they say ignorance is not a defense.
It's not a
in terms
defense.
of,
It's not
the
defense
law.
at all. Yeah.
Because the law actually provides that you need to separate your waste. Section 12 of the Sustainable Waste Management Act stipulates that consumers need to segregate their waste. Further prescribes fines and repercussions to the collector. The person, the truck that comes to ferry waste from your household, they're also now moving into the future, they will not be allowed to mix their waste.
Yes.
Recently, also NEMA indicated that, of course, they felt it can be a bit complicated to try and introduce a total of 3 bins at once. So they've limited it to 2, where we are saying organic waste on one end
Yes.
and dry waste on the other.
Indeed.
Yes. And just to sort of break it down to easily understandable explanation,
Yes.
is that dry waste are the plastics,
And the
carton
bottles
and
the cartons.
bottles and the likes. You
Yes.
place them separately. The food waste, so what is remaining on your plate, the banana peels and whatever, in another bin.
Yeah.
And recognizing the gap in terms of knowledge gap, we also notice that however much we might be able to share this information, you and I are potentially used to and almost normalized bad habit. So we saw it needful to now leverage on the pester power effect.
Pester power effect.
Yeah, so where we are saying we want to come up with a generation that is actually more cognizant of their role in the environment. So we are talking about, and of course this is a term that has taken traction in the past few days, the Gen Zs being really woke on their mandate from a legal and governance standpoint. But now we also saw it needful that another generation needs to come up and realize that we actually have a role as far as environmental stewardship is concerned.
Indeed.
So we have a program which we call the KPRO Schools Innovation Challenge.
KPRO Schools Innovation Challenge.
Yes. So it's hosted under the KPRO Youth Chapter.
Let's do this.
Yes.
Let's just take a break.
Okay.
That sounds like a big thing that we want to talk about.
Yes.
So let's just take a break at this point. Dear viewers, grab your glass of water, come back. Let's just hear what James has to say in this next half of this episode. And yeah, really, there's a lot for you to learn. There's a lot for me to learn. There's a lot for every one of us to not only learn but act on. And so come back. Let's continue. Thank you very much.
Hope TV is where you look and live, with an excellent selection of the best Christian programming consisting of local and international content of inspirational stories, talk shows, Bible commentary, youth, health shows, children entertainment, contemporary gospel music, extended times of worship, live broadcast, news, movies, drama, Christian ministry programs, and so much more. Hope TV is another quality service from Christ is the Answer Ministries with over 45% of authentic and credible local content every week. Hope TV is a sister station to Hope FM, Kenya's leading Christian radio station with footprints across the country. Tune in to Hope TV, where you look and live.
Wow, glad you're back. I'm so glad that you came back. We just need to continue here. And of course, James was telling us about the School Innovation Challenge.
Yes.
And I just thought, let's take a break, breathe in, breathe out, and we hear this amazing thing that you're doing,
Yes.
the School Innovation Challenge. You can carry on from here, James.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so as I was saying, the KPRO Schools Innovation Challenge is intended to leverage on the opportunities we have as far as the newer and younger generations are concerned.
Yes.
So the intention is to have practical solutions and sort of some incentivized model for our school-going kids to be able to participate and appreciate what do we mean when we talk about recycling? What do we mean when we talk about proper disposal of waste?
Yes.
What do we mean when we talk about issues on reuse? So we engage them and of course on select schools based on our capacities on different forms of challenges. So in some cases, and which is the most dominant, we engage them to be able to come up with innovative solutions using waste that has ordinarily been disposed of. So come up with an innovative solution to a societal problem,
Yes.
working with what would be regarded as waste. So the winners of such challenges, so the select schools will receive support in the form of bins, and off-taking of the waste that they will be collecting. We'd also be providing them with, in some scenarios, subsidies or other bursaries for the select students. And where the schools have larger populations, we give an opportunity for the winning group to be able to visit a recycling plant, for them to also have an appreciation of really what we mean by recycling.
Great.
Yes.
Wow, amazing stuff you're doing.
Yes.
And I can only imagine what a transformation it will be
Yes.
for a generation to come, and for them it will be very well understood right from the go.
Yes,
So accepting it and absorbing it and doing it will not be easy for, will not be difficult for them,
Yes.
both as producers and consumers, right?
Yes, sure.
Great.
Sure. And I will tell you for free, I don't know whether you have a kid.
Yes,
but
I
the
do.
reality
I have a 17-year-old and a 10-year-old.
Yes, yes. I'm sure the 10-year-old, when they come home and say, our teacher told us to do this, you'll only do so much. You'll have to comply.
Indeed.
So we are trying to take advantage of that power that they have at our household.
Yes.
And use them as champions for change
And they
at household
can.
level. Yes.
And they will and they can.
Yes, yes,
They
yes.
really will.
Sure, sure.
Not only at the household level, but I can imagine to the churches they go to as well as the schools they are in and everywhere, even in the bus they travel in.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Sure,
They will be agents of change.
Yes, yes.
Good stuff, good stuff. How far has this gone? Is it all over the country? Or is it within Nairobi, or how is it?
Predominantly, we've worked with around 16 schools in Nairobi.
Wow.
But the next phase, we are targeting schools outside Nairobi. So
Yes.
we have a select school in Mombasa.
Yeah.
There's also one in Kisumu
Uh-huh.
and a third one in Nairobi.
Yes.
And of course, this is an ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
As our capacity grows, we're able to onboard more schools.
Indeed.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Lovely, lovely. As you do this, it looks all rosy and brilliant and nice and easy and like you guys are on the roll. Do you experience any challenges in your work, and what are some of the challenges that you deal with, James?
By and large, I think there's only so much you can do without challenges. And that is also same to our industry. In terms of the major challenge, in the interim as a PRO, as far as our business model is concerned, is the lack of clarity as far as the regulatory landscape is concerned. So in Kenya, we have the Act, the regulations operationalize the Act.
Definitely.
So we had the housing levy coming into place. We had to have housing regulations to be able to enact the Finance Act 2023 to allow for deductions for the housing levy. So in the context of EPR, we have the Sustainable Waste Management Act providing for implementation of EPR, but there are no regulations to speak to the Act. So that has meant it's quite difficult to stick to one strategy and future-proof the business model of our organization.
I see.
Yes, yes. The second thing would be related to what we had spoken about, the lack of awareness. This affects both the consumers and the producers.
Yes.
So of course, for the producers, it hits their P&L. Some producers pay quite some good amount of money, and that in the difficult macro and the microeconomic conditions that we are in becomes quite an impediment and really a bother to them, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
For the consumer, they still don't have appreciation that really you and I have a role to play in terms of waste management. They'll always choose to sit back and blame everyone else and ignore their primary role in the waste ecosystem. Lastly, in the context of challenges, is the issue of data. So typical of any organization, you need to rely on data to be able to inform your strategy.
Definitely.
In Kenya, the statistics we are using we are relying on statistics that were last documented anywhere between 2010 to 2015. So almost 10 years later, we've not had a baseline survey on the waste categories that we have in the country. The generation of waste in different counties is also still quite hazy in terms of the knowledge that is there. So for instance, I'll tell you, like right now we say Nairobi generates 3,000 to 3,500 metric tons of waste per day. This is a statistic we are relying on from data that was collected by JICA in 2010. So 14 years later, we've not had new knowledge or new information to address that data gap.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And who is responsible for that? I don't know.
It's really everyone.
Yeah.
But we feel there would be responsible person, by and large, should be the government to try and, similar to sensors, and waste management is more of a public good. So they should work towards facilitating private sector to try and support delivery of the public good. Yeah.
And then I also realized that there is a lot to do with Nairobi as being your hub of operation in terms of what you do.
Yes, yes.
And while talking about data, I'm only imagining there is not even anything that would be available from other counties. Is that so?
Yes, yes. I think That is true. I think only Homa Bay County got some support from UN Habitat. They launched their baseline survey last month, but one. So that is the most recent statistics we have. Mombasa County are also trying to document and try and understanding where they are at, where they're seeing up to 95% of their waste is organic. This is not yet officially gazetted, so we are waiting to see.
Why do I see an opportunity right there for somebody who is in research and such?
Yes,
and of course, you can mention other opportunities that are available in this ecosystem, because there seem to be quite a number of opportunities. That, dear viewers, you may actually not be aware about. And at this point, it's good to open up your eyes, because every other day people are challenged in terms of very potent business ideas. And yet, we have many opportunities that are in some of these spaces. And so it's time to open your ears and eyes and see some of this. And James, that being one of the ones that I can clearly see, what are the other opportunities? And maybe you can even speak into this one.
Yes. So EPR as a dispensation has brought about a lot of opportunities. We are increasingly seeing establishment of aggregation sites and waste recycling facilities. So therein lies an opportunity, because increasingly recyclers are lacking feedstock to be able to power their machinery. So if you don't have the financial muscle or capacity to establish a recycling plant, you can do the aggregation where you're collecting waste at manageable levels and then transfer it to. We are able to link you with the recyclers to be able to take at a price or at a cost. And of course, this is demonstrable by the different in recent months and years. We've seen quite a number of community-based organizations working predominantly with youth and women-led organizations, getting into that space and creating jobs while at it.
I see.
Of course, the other bit is on the audit for producers.
Yes.
So EPR will require that producers have to demonstrate traceability of their products throughout the life cycle of the product. So for professionals within the environment ecosystem also have an opportunity. Of course, now these are people licensed by NEMA.
Yes.
And that is another opportunity people can be able to leverage on. And of course, as you've said, policy and advocacy primarily should be informed by research.
Yes.
So there's a lot of opportunities for would-be consultants in that space, whether it is on waste categorization surveys, baseline surveys on certain proposals on waste management and the likes, legal advice on compliance for producers, and of course for the county governments who are trying to domesticate the law, because the National Act is already in place. So quite a number of opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you. And of course, when you were speaking about the challenges, I just forgot to ask, this week and the last 2 weeks, we've had the finance bill being the talk of town. How has this affected you, and does it pose any challenge in terms of ERP?
Yes. So they proposed, one of the most topical issues that was under discussion was the proposed eco-levy tax. So eco-levy tax was almost a skeleton or a replica of what EPR is trying to achieve in the country, where they're saying the producer needed to, or the manufacturer needed to have paid around 150 shillings per kg for collection of their waste. We, of course, have made some significant progress in terms of lobbying and advocating for the removal of the same, because we felt that EPR has not been given time to actually be implemented, and us having lessons to learn from them. And then the consequential effect, or rather compounding effect in terms of the prices of goods, was also going to be quite severe. You're looking at products getting up to 70% increments in terms of the retail price. So, for instance, edible oil. There was a clause proposing introduction of 25% excise duty. In addition to that, you add the 150 shillings per kg. So the incremental or the compounding effect would have seen the product getting to up to 70% increase in retail price. Then another contentious provision, which was also quite counterproductive, and unfortunately we've not yet been able to advocate for its removal, is a proposal to remove VAT exemption. on importation of plant and machinery for plastic recycling. So it's quite counterproductive that you're trying to encourage recycling, but on this other hand, you are disrupting the proposed friendly ecosystem for recyclers.
Yeah. Wow.
So those would be the two most direct impact. So it was going to result in loss of jobs, competitiveness of goods, both at East African level and regionally, and of course internationally.
I see. I see. Wow.
Fortunately, of course, through lobbying and several discussions, we've seen some of those contentious proposals removed.
Great.
So like now,
good to know
the government was proposing that the eco-levy would only be limited to imported goods, finished goods. So of course now the details and the granular specifications of the same are what we are now trying to understand. But at least it was a bit of a relief for the local manufacturers. Yes.
Wow. Wow. Quite some progress there.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm sure there are other opportunities and challenges that you will keep seeing that will keep turning around even as you grow that, ecosystem, because it's a very relatively new, right?
True.
Because if you said by 2017 is when now you are building this and it has come this way, there's bound to be quite a number of changes as we go on.
True.
Great. And so finally, I want to ask about the opportunities then, or rather, where are what is the future? What does the future of the circular economy look like in Kenya? And I'm sure you've been able to even benchmark and look at what other jurisdictions are doing. Are there some new things that are coming up, and what does it really look like?
Yes. So the success of EPR and by and large circular economy would be require a lot of leveraging on technology. So we expect to see a lot of innovation and technology coming in.
Great.
Where we are seeing packaging and other products being redesigned to ensure they're actually recyclable.
I see.
We'd also be seeing a lot of redesign of products to reduce on non-essential and unnecessary plastic packaging. The other opportunity we see, and this also speaks to the progress we've made as a country. So South Africa made EPR mandatory in 2021. But as ironical as it may sound, they're actually benchmarking from us, who made it mandatory in 2022. So that should tell you that the future is luminous.
I know.
People are starting to appreciate the opportunities in that space. Of course, you're also going to be seeing a lot of employment. Between 2017 to date, when that conversation started, we've seen more than 12,000 new jobs coming into
more than how many?
12,000.
12,000 new jobs.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. But that is directly.
Yes.
And of course, we usually argue within the ecosystem that for every one person being employed, there's an indirect 5 people benefiting from that source of employment.
Definitely. The ripple effect you cannot ignore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Indeed. Quite some good work you're doing right there.
Yes.
Yeah, and I believe the effort is not by you only.
Yes.
There are partners that you're working with.
Yes.
What are some of the partners that you're working with in this ecosystem, even as you achieve your mandate every day?
The list is endless. I think it's everyone.
Yeah.
Even the church is one of them. We have programs targeted to churches.
All right.
But we work predominantly with residential associations. So the Kenya Alliance of Residents Association is one of our critical partners. The National Environment Management Authority is our regulator. Of course, the Ministry of Environment by extension. We also work with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers because they're the direct beneficiaries and, or rather, target group as far as the compliance is concerned. We also work with a lot with donors who fund our projects, because what we are able to receive from our members might not necessarily be enough to meet the obligations and demands of the society, given where we are at, as far as the disposal of waste is concerned. We work closely with the county governments. So waste is fully a devolved function. So we have to work closely with the county governments to ensure that we are complementing their efforts, as opposed to trying to abrogate any of the waste value chain actors' roles in the ecosystem. And by and large now, the producers are also critical partners of ours. So even as we are saying we want to collect and recycle, but what of the fractions that are difficult to recycle? So we have to have a conversation in terms of them redefining their business models,
Yes.
to now start embracing design for recyclability as a strategic initiative for their businesses.
I see.
Yes, yes.
There's something you've said that I would want to hear more about.
Yes.
You said that waste is a devolved function.
Yes, yes.
Would you want to tell us a little more about that?
Yes, yes. So remember in 2010 we had the new constitution. Then as a resultant effect we had the County Governments Act coming to fruition, that is in 2012.
Yes.
And that in itself, similar to other functions, so whether it's health, primary education, or
Yes.
early level education, waste is also a decentralized function.
Indeed.
So you notice Nairobi County Government is responsible for waste within its jurisdiction, and other counties
I see.
within the devolved dispensation. Yes.
Great, I get it, I get
Yes,
it, I get it.
yes.
And of course, finally, I would want you to do a parting shot.
Okay.
But before you do, I really, really hope that, my dear viewers, there is something to pick from this, because Kepro is doing amazing things. And what is your take as a consumer, or better still as a producer? Because this is really a call to action for you to know your role, to know your mandate, to know what it is that is within your hands to do, to be able to make our ecosystem, to be able to make our environment better, because you have a role to play, I have a role to play, Kepro has a role to play. So you can do your parting shot at this moment, James.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yes.
Okay. I think my parting shot would be to our audiences. We argue at Kepro that the consumer is a primary stakeholder in the waste value chain, because if you're improperly disposing of your waste, then there's only so much. However much Kepro will pump in money, however much our waste management operators will put in the effort, as long as you're not putting your waste in the designated bin, we'll always have that problem. So mine would also be to, sort of borrowing from your, what you've said as a call to action, is a clarion call. Let us appreciate that our waste is our responsibility, and the greatest threat to our environment is the assumption that somebody else is responsible for taking care of the earth. It really starts with me and you, stops with me and you.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
Yes, our waste is our responsibility.
Yes, definitely.
Your waste is your responsibility. My waste is my responsibility.
Sure.
And so, yeah, this comes to an end with a great clarion call to take charge and to take care of your responsibility. And what I hear you say, James, segregate. And it's easier today than ever before. Segregate dry waste from wet waste, and ensure that the pickers, the people who collect it thus.
Yes.
So with this, then, we come to the end of our show this evening. It's been real, it's been great, and I'm grateful that you made it to sit back, relax, and enjoy as you learn, as I have been doing as well. And we are so grateful, James, that you made it to the studio tonight. May the good Lord bless you and keep doing what you're doing. May Kepro grow to be big and to do better things, maybe even beyond Kenya. I don't know whether there are opportunities beyond Kenya for you as Kepro.
Yes. We started conversations on ESC harmonization of EPR.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Go well, and may the good Lord bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. With this, we come to the end of our show tonight. Thank you very much, dear viewers. It's been real. It's been great. See you next week, same time, and may the good Lord bless you. Amen.